A faint hum of uncertainty fills the night, the kind that presses against your chest without warning, whispering that nothing is as it seems. Somewhere, in the stillness between breaths, a shadow waits not outside, but within. In a town veiled by mist and the weight of untold secrets, a young woman moves through streets that feel both familiar and alien. She is precise, measured in her steps, yet her eyes betray an unease she cannot fully name. The world around her hums with normalcy. The distant chatter of neighbors, the rustle of leaves against wrought iron fences. Yet even a subtle tension coils in the air, like a thread ready to snap. She is not alone. Others share her days, yet their presence offers no comfort. A man in the corner of a dimly lit cafe watches her with something that might be concern or curiosity. His posture is tense, deliberate, as though every movement is weighed, calculated. He carries the invisible weight of decisions past, decisions unspoken, choices that seem to ripple silently through his surroundings. And then there is the child, who lingers at the edges of vision, small but perceptive, as if sensing fractures in reality. Adults choose to ignore. They do not speak much, yet their glances are sharp, noticing patterns in behavior, gestures, and glimmers of emotion that adults miss entirely. Even in their silence, they hint at a story layered beneath the surface, a story that demands attention but refuses easy understanding. The town itself seems complicit. Its streets are lined with familiar facades. Yet something lingers behind the window shadows that move without owners, reflections that hesitate before they mirror. There is a rhythm here, subtle but undeniable, a pulse that threads through alleys and porches into the hearts of its inhabitants. And within that pulse lies a question no one dares to speak aloud. What if the ordinary is merely the surface of something far older, far darker? Inside a modest home, the young woman pauses at the threshold of a room she has entered countless times. Her fingers brush against the wall, tracing familiar grooves. Yet each touch feels different tonight, heavier. A photograph tilts slightly on the shelf, catching the soft glow of a single lamp. In the corner, an object, a trinket, almost forgotten, casts a shadow that grows longer the longer she stares. And in that shadow, she feels the echo of a presence that is neither welcome nor entirely imagined. The man, meanwhile, navigates his own inner terrain. He moves through the town with measured steps, yet each encounter leaves traces on his mind, subtle yet persistent. A conversation overheard, a gesture misread, a fleeting expression, a puzzle of human behavior that teeters on the edge of understanding. His thoughts drift, often unbidden, to the question of morality. The small compromises, the choices made in darkness, the sins no one talks about but everyone carries. Night deepens, and with it, the world grows quieter, but not empty. There are sounds beneath sounds. The low thrum of distant engines, the whisper of fabric against skin, a door closing softly, almost ceremoniously. Every noise is magnified in the stillness, each one resonating with unspoken meaning. The young woman pauses again, feeling as if the walls themselves are listening, as if they too bear witness to the intricate dance of secrecy and desire that pulses through her life. It is in these quiet hours that the small, nearly imperceptible shifts begin. A glance lingers too long. A door creaks when it should not. A figure appears at the periphery and vanishes before recognition is possible. The ordinary bends toward the uncanny, and with each subtle alteration, the boundaries between what is known and what is feared start to blur. Within this fragile tension, relationships are tested. The man and woman, the child and the stranger, the townspeople all carry invisible burdens. There are conversations left unfinished, gestures of care hesitated, glances that convey more than words ever could. And beneath it all, the silent question persists. How much of ourselves are we willing to reveal, and how much must remain shadowed? Time, too, behaves differently here. Moments stretch, tenkoyaps, leaving the mind chasing an echo that never fully resolves. The town exists simultaneously in multiple rhythms. The waking hours, the quiet hours, the unspoken hours where memory and fear intersect. And through it all, the characters are guided not by knowledge, but by instinct. By the faint pull of curiosity, by the nagging awareness that the surface of reality may be a fragile, deceptive veneer. A subtle storm approaches, though the sky remains calm. It is not a storm of wind or rain, but of perception, of understanding, of the moments when life shifts in a way that can never be undone. Each character feels it differently, as a tightening in the chest, a whisper at the edge of hearing, a shadow that refuses to be ignored. And yet, they cannot name it. They can only move forward, guided by questions that are far more urgent than answers. And in this charged quiet, the story waits. It waits, not in action, but in recognition, into sudden, fleeting awareness that what we see is never all that exists, that every smile may hide a fracture, every touch may carry consequence, every shadow may hold truth. As the night deepens, the young woman steps into the final corridor of the house. The photograph tilts further. The object in the corner seems to breathe, and for the first time, she feels that the world might not merely contain secrets that might be shaped by them. A single moment stretches into eternity, a heartbeat that feels like the turning of a page. And then, just as perception sharpens, the scene holds suspended, unresolved. There is tension in the pause, a question that lingers in the mind. What'll unfold when the surface cracks, when the quiet fractures, when the unseen becomes undeniable? And with that the night holds its breath, waiting for revelation, waiting for consequence, waiting for the story to demand attention. The night fractures, and with it, the subtle tensions of the town begin to unravel. Shadows once contained now seem to pulse with intent, and the quiet unease of earlier hours transforms into a presence that cannot be ignored. Every corner, every mirror, every reflection begins to speak not with words, but with implication. The young woman moves forward, yet each step is heavier than the last. She senses not only the weight of her own choices, but the collective unease of those around her. Each glance she casts at the man, at the child, at the spaces between familiar objects reveals layers of intention she had not perceived before. In these layers, the ordinary dissolves, and the extraordinary asserts itself with a quiet insistence. The man, too, reaches his threshold. His careful calculations, his silent observations, begin to confront him with truths he has long avoided. The world he thought he understood the morality of decisions. The clarity of cause and effect proves far more fragile. His internal reflections become urgent, yet disjointed, as he realizes that actions carry consequences beyond comprehension, and intentions can be misread in ways that fracture both trust and self-perception. The child, once merely observer, now steps subtly into the flow of events. In their silence lies a clarity that adults cannot yet grasp, or perception unfiltered by fear or hesitation. They notice the patterns, the hidden currents, the quiet betrayals, and the unspoken loyalties that shape the town's rhythm. In these observations, the child becomes a mirror, reflecting both the darkness and the light within those they encounter. The town itself responds. Windows vibrate faintly, as if in resonance with a collective unease. The streets seem longer, alleys deeper, and doorways more confining. Time stretches irregularly. Moments of clarity appear, only to be swallowed by fog, by shadow, by uncertainty. Every step taken by the characters is a negotiation with an environment that is no longer neutral, a world that mirrors the moral and emotional landscapes of those who inhabit it. The first fractures emerge in human connection. A touch that was once reassuring becomes suspect. A glance meant to comfort becomes laden with question. The young woman confronts her own sense of responsibility, realizing that an action carries as much weight as intervention. The man struggles with guilt and understanding, caught between empathy and fear, between what he desires and what he knows to be true. And the child, perceptive as ever, senses that the world's moral order is not fixed, but fluid, contingent upon choices both small and immense. A pivotal moment arrives not in action, but in recognition. The young woman, standing before a mirror that reflects more than her image, sees herself as others see her end, yet not as she expected. The reflection is fractured, layered with past decisions, unspoken desires, and moral complexities she had long ignored. In that fractured image, she perceives both vulnerability and resilience, fear and clarity, isolation and connection. It is a revelation not of circumstance, but of self-on understanding that the external world cannot define the internal truth. Simultaneously, the man reaches an emotional tipping point. He witnesses the consequences of choices he believed were confined to private conscience. Actions long deferred or suppressed erupt into significance, demanding acknowledgement. There is no spectacle, no overt confrontation. Only the subtle, devastating realization that morality is not abstract, that intention and outcome are never perfectly aligned, and that human behavior exists in a web of cause, effect, and interpretation. The child's role crystallizes in this crescendo of internal understanding. They offer no answers, yet their presence catalyzes insight. In observing both the young woman and the man, the child's quiet awareness exposes the illusions of control and perception. Their gaze reminds viewers that clarity often emerges not from action, but from witness and awareness that is both compassionate and unsettling. Through these intertwined perspectives, the story unfolds its deepest truths. SceneSense is not merely a narrative of supernatural elements or external tension. It is an exploration of human consciousness, of the moral and psychological currents that govern choice. The town, with its veiled streets and shifting shadows, becomes a canvas upon which the characters' inner lives are projected. Every creak, every whisper, every fleeting image is imbued with symbolic weight, inviting reflection rather than mere observation. As the story moves toward resolution, the stakes remain largely internal. External events are minimal, yet emotionally they carry the full force of revelation. The young woman confronts her limitations and her courage. The man reconciles with the implications of past actions. The child, perceptive and silent, witnesses the interplay of innocence and understanding. Together, they reveal the film's true power, the capacity to explore what it means to inhabit a moral universe that is at once intimate and unyielding. The narrative momentum peaks, not in spectacle, but in recognition. Viewers are invited to consider their own hidden decisions, the quiet compromises, and the moral shadows that influence daily life. The horror and supernatural elements serve as allegory, magnifying what is already present in human experience, the tension between who we are, who we wish to be, and who we fear we might become. And then, in the final sequence, a profound stillness descends. The town appears unchanged, yet everything has shifted. The characters move through the same streets, touch the same objects, speak the same words, but the meaning of each gesture resonates differently. It is a world unchanged in form, yet fundamentally altered in perception. The young woman pauses in the fading light, her reflection in a window capturing both vulnerability and insight. The man walks a familiar path, aware of the moral landscapes he cannot undo. The child observes quietly, a witness to revelation rather than participant in action. In Tiskiet, the film's message crystallizes. Awareness, reflection, and ethical mindfulness are the true tests of courage, far more than confrontation or heroics. And as the screen fades, the audience is left not with answers, but with questions that linger, quiet yet persistent. How do we reconcile our actions with our conscience? How do unseen forces, internal or external, shape our understanding of self and society? And ultimately, what does it mean to live honestly, fully, and knowingly in a world that offers no guarantees of clarity or justice? In the echo of these final moments, SceneSense whispers its lasting truth. The most profound journeys are not those that change the world, but those that illuminate the hidden depths of our own hearts.